I'm just so overwhelmed with gratitude to all our investors. Truly, as I mentioned before, it's not just about the capital that supports us. It's the community. It's the belief in myself and my co-founder, Justin, that enables us to act and behave in a way with the utmost self-esteem. And you can't buy that. So thank you to the Republic community and our investors for giving that to us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Profit to the People, the official podcast of Republic, where we believe you have the power to invest in the future you believe in. I'm your host, Lisa Carmen Wang, head of brand at Republic, and I'll be taking you behind the scenes to meet the team, founders, and investors in our community who share their insights on the future of investing and how they're bringing profit back to the people. To learn how you can invest, head over to republic.co and follow us on all socials at Join Republic and at Lisa Carmen Wang. Today, I'm here with Rooshy Roy. She's the co-founder and CEO of AAVRANI, the beauty brand rooted in holistic skincare rituals that unites India's all-natural approach with modern science. Before creating AAVRANI, she worked in finance and graduated with an MBA from Wharton. Rooshy is listed in 2020's Forbes 30 Under 30 in the retail and e-commerce category. To date, AAVRANI has successfully launched their Republic Equity crowdfunding campaign and raised nearly $4 million. Today, we'll be diving into how to create an authentic brand that reflects your true identity and cultural roots, and the ongoing personal development journey associated with entrepreneurship, and of course, how Rooshy and AAVRANI are disrupting the skincare industry. Rooshy, welcome to Profit to the People.
Thank you so much for having me.
So just to start, give us a little bit about your background and how you came up with the idea for AAVRANI.
Sure. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in the Detroit area. My parents are immigrants from India. And so I grew up going back to Kolkata annually to see my extended family, including my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. And in the suburb where we lived in Michigan was predominantly Caucasian. So kind of felt like I've had one foot in each culture growing up. And especially as it relates to beauty, I didn't really appreciate the delineation between the approach in India versus that in the US. In India, our approach was very, very much in the pursuit of overall health and wellness. We'd use natural ingredients from our kitchen to create personal care treatments, including skincare, hair care, body care, that addressed very specific concerns. And so it never really felt like the glitz and glam and bold color nature that I felt like defined beauty as it relates to how I grew up. And so didn't at all really even link the two together until I got to business school. And so professionally, my background is actually in finance. I went to Indiana University where I majored in finance, then started my career in investment banking, and then moved into private equity. I spent 6 years in that world before I realized that that wasn't for me. And I needed to figure out what it is I truly cared about and felt passionate enough about to dedicate my life to. And so that's what inspired me to go to business school. And then as luck would have it, the second day of school, I met my now co-founder, Justin Silver. He was in my class at Wharton. And we were just talking about what we had done prior to starting at school. And since he had worked in finance as well, we were talking about some of the projects we'd worked on, some of the people we'd met. And he was telling me about his most recent experience growing and scaling a Japanese-inspired skincare brand. And just as a beauty enthusiast, as a consumer, I was so curious to know everything about it. And he was telling me that one of the co-founders, this Asian woman, went to Japan, saw how beautiful geisha skin is, asked her secrets, and brought them to the US in a luxury format, like ingredients like green tea, black charcoal, rice bran oil. And as he's telling me that story, I'm just like, wait a minute, there are all these ingredients I grew up using and combining, like turmeric, neem, rosewater, honey, that I had this innate knowledge around how to pair them depending on skincare concern. And Justin was so fascinated. He's feeding off my energy. He's like, so you can't buy those at the store? You would make those turmeric masks at home every time? And I was like, yeah, come to think of it, that is how we would do it. And the turmeric would stain my fingers and my face. And that was where the idea of AAVRANI was born. It wasn't even 3 weeks after that we had transferred all our savings, our personal savings that we were going to use for tuition into a joint business account, secured AAVRANI LLC on LegalZoom.com. Just started getting after it, and we've never looked back ever since. And that was in the summer of 2017. So that's what brings me here today.
Wow. And I mean, one of the first things that captures me about your brand, and this is listed right up front on your website, is that, it shares the story of you growing up between two cultures, feeling either too Indian or too American, which I think many immigrants or immigrant children feel. And so this brand is a celebration of your duality by uniting these two worlds. However, that was not most of your experience. And for, a lot of us who feel different, that's not our experience, because we want to disassociate with our roots and we want to feel the same. So when you had gotten to business school, I had read that you still weren't at that point where you were embracing your Indian roots. So how did that transition happen?
Wow, you did your research. I'm glad you touch on that, because that really is the crux of our new brand and our new philosophy. In that conversation with Justin, where we got super excited around this whole idea, I would have to say that my heritage and my understanding of the ingredients and all that knowledge that I happen to have, I viewed as more of a convenience. It was like, oh, great, here's a white space in the market, this wonderful opportunity for me to pursue entrepreneurship, which has been my dream. I've always been very enterprising and entrepreneurial as a kid. And I was just very motivated by this business opportunity. And it wasn't until a year after we had launched the beta version of AAVRANI.com, so summer of 2019, after we'd graduated with our MBAs, moved back to New York and started building out the team, that I realized I didn't feel connected with the brand that I had created. And at the time, that brand was very inadvertent. I had no appreciation for what that meant. So it was very much pulled together based off what I'd assumed people expected from an Indian skincare brand. So we have jewel tones, earthy hues to showcase the natural and organic nature of the products, added some millennial pink in there because it worked great for Glossier, had some yellow gold accents because that's what I think about when I think about India and what other people think about India. So it was just hobbled together in that way. And coming back to New York and now being full-time an entrepreneur, not having the safety net of an MBA to fall back on if things were to go south, I felt this obligation to build a brand in the right way now that I had a bit of experience and understanding of what that meant and my own sort of connection or lack thereof to the culture needed to be addressed if I was going to build an Indian-inspired beauty brand. And so from summer of 2019 to summer of 2020, I spent that entire year basically starting from scratch and isolating every part of the brand and really tapping into my inner child, my history, my ego, my everything to figure out, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? And what does that actually look like in a way that's a true, authentic, creative expression of myself? And so that after that year-long journey, which was tumultuous and volatile, of course, because of COVID interplayed there, But it was the best thing to ever happen to me. And that new connection and way I feel about the brand is what I believe to be now exactly who I am and the perfect interpretation with what you see on AAVRANI.com today.
That's amazing. And I resonate so much with it because I've been through this journey of like trying to find who my authentic self really is. And that's actually one of the toughest questions, I think, to answer, especially when you're building a brand that's based off of your personal story and like requires you to be in the limelight. It's like, if you don't feel like you're being your true self, you feel like an imposter, like a fraud.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And also it's like the idea of building a business and the excitement around that only lasts so long, right? It like about a year into it, I'm like, this is not going to motivate me. And in the third or fourth all-nighter in a row, there's got to be a deeper, more meaningful reason why I'm doing this to get me through the rough patches. And so I'm so glad I went through that journey. And I think that in many ways, AAVRANI is the catalyst for me finding myself at the time that I did.
And I know that initially you didn't want to be the face of your brand. You didn't want your story up front. So tell me about how you were able to find that confidence, because, you know, at that point you're raising money, you know, you're getting sales in, you've got Forbes 30 under 30. So like, where was that disconnect? And at what point did you say, okay, I actually feel like I got to own this?
It was right at that point in that summer in 2019. Where this happened, where I had that realization that it's got to be me that's the face of the brand. And in order for it to be me, it has to be authentic. And in order for it to be authentic, I need to find out who the I am. You know what I mean? So It was like that kind of train of thought. And to be totally honest with you, it caused a lull of depression for a little bit. I was like, what am I even doing? Do I want to do this? I didn't sign up for it. I'm not the type of person who necessarily enjoys the limelight. I'm quite introverted, and that's just not a strength for me either. So I was just like very uncomfortable with the whole idea of that. And then on top of that, I myself have never really felt beautiful in the common sense, because my whole life I'd felt pretty ostracized and left out of the conversation of beauty in the US. So I thought, how am I possibly going to own this thing with any ounce of conviction? So it got me feeling very low. But after those like worst 4 to 6-ish days, let's say a week, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you've signed up to do this. You can back out at any time. So if you sign up to do it, then you've got to be willing to go down this journey and realize that you're in control, so you can opt out at any time. There's no point in, you know, lulling or half-assing on the margin, right? So I was very decisive and just decided to go for it in that summer, and getting in front of the camera more, figuring out, you know, how to get more comfortable in large groups of people, how to get better at public speaking, all of those things. It's a journey I'm still on, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I went through the exact same journey. So I've been an introvert my whole life. And then when I started my first company, it was like very similar, where first time I went up to pitch my company at a pitch competition, like hands are shaking and sweaty, and you just like hear your heart pounding. But it's like, at a certain point, you realize, like, if I don't sell my company and I don't step up and I don't become my own biggest cheerleader, like my company literally dies. And so, yeah, you learn to be a great public speaker. You learn to network. You learn to put yourself out there and to pitch with confidence, even if it's fake confidence for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the best part is, after the first couple of steps, as you're saying, you know, the first few people you pitch to and the first few times you get on camera, you start to realize, like, hey, like, what else can I do? Like, you kind of, I don't know, I at least felt like I was selling myself short, even to myself, in terms of the fear and just general hesitation around diving in this way. I think that confidence really compounds, and people underestimate that just because the beginning is so tough, or it can be so tough.
I'm curious how that journey and conversation went with Justin, your co-founder?
Lucky for me, in all ways, he was all for it. Of course, he also learned a lot about we learned a lot together in those first couple of years working on this, where he too appreciated at the minimum, our brand has got to be authentic, right? And so if we subscribe to that, then it required me to go down the path that I did. And so he was just so supportive along the way. He's constantly, building me up. He's the best hype man I've ever had. He actually gets a little irritated with me when I sell myself short or I get shy or I step back. He's like, it's all in your head. You're so good. You don't even know it. And it's the best blessing.
Tell me about how the company has shifted since the rebrand. How are things going?
Amazing. I mean, it's really exceeding our expectations in the best way. I would say that first and foremost, I never imagined I'd be this proud about showcasing the brand and the product and holding it up and saying, this is me. And to your point earlier, that level of conviction is what inspires people to want to invest in you and believe in you, which I didn't at all realize during the first iteration of the brand that piece was holding me back. It was like, oh, I have all the numbers right. And I know the responses to, what's your CAC, who are your customers, right? Like in black and white, I should be nailing this. But really, it wasn't until the rebrand that I was able to talk about my vision and our company in a way that just flows out of me without, any sort of thought. And so that's been the most special part of this. And then, of course, seeing the way that it's resonated with our customers and just our audiences in general is super cool. Because there were a lot of questions and negative feedback along the way of like, is blue even at all Indian? Or like, how are you taking something so sacred and a lot of times integrated even with parts of the religion into something that's just super Americanized? And do you feel like you're appropriating? All those kind of questions that I was nervous about before the launch just washed away because I sort of realized it didn't matter anymore what anybody else thought, given that I feel so that it's aligned and authentic with who I am. And anybody else's opinion is really just their interpretation of the brand. So yeah, the rebrand has been phenomenal.
Amazing. So I want to just go back for a bit to when you first started fundraising. So tell me about why you initially chose to do equity crowdfunding on Republic.
We started fundraising right after our first production run in that summer of 2018. That's as far as Justin and my savings went, was that first order. And so we started fundraising right away. And then as we started navigating the landscape of investors out there, we realized how challenging it is to raise money and to get the word out there, to reach the right people who understand what you're trying to do. And so when the opportunity with Republic came about, it was just one of those like, oh my gosh, finally something that is going to be able to give us the access and platform that we need so badly. With the whole structure around how early stage investing has been, up until just the last few years, it's been really isolated and difficult to break into unless you have certain connections and certain pedigrees. And if I'm speaking totally honestly, like if you're not a white dude, it's like way harder, like no matter what, right? Like already. And so there's so many roadblocks we started to face as it relates to fundraising. And of course, not all of it's attributed to not meeting the right people, but I would say most of it was. And so as soon as Republic came up as an opportunity, it was like, oh, yeah, we're doing that. Like, I can't wait. Like this is so long overdue. How special that this came up in parallel.
And how was that journey for you?
It was really exciting. I have to say, we started fundraising for that pre-seed round in 2019 when we launched Republic in that January. So January through the fall, like October, pre-Republic, we were fundraising, and that's like so much of your time and energy and focus away from the business and the operations, and then your whole self-esteem is in question. Just so many things. And as soon as we got on Republic, the way that we were able to interact with our audience and just like the praise and appreciation from people around what we were building, it was just so validating at a time where I personally felt like I really needed it, because, it's one thing to hear like 1,000 no's. It's another to deal with 100,000 no's. You know what I mean? It's just like at some point it's like, wait, am I not enough? Is something off here? And so the Republic experience was just so wonderful, and we were able to exceed our expectations with that campaign and close very swiftly within 2019.
Amazing. And any opportunities that came as a result?
Many. So we, of course, had such a broad reach off of just the investors and the audience. And some people in there had reached out to us personally to connect us with people on like HSN, QVC, inquiring about retailers. Oh, I know a buyer here and there. And just an influx of people offering their support and help and advice, and even offering things that even Justin and I hadn't imagined at the time. So it's actually quite hard to measure the good things that came out of the Republic campaign, because it just so far and beyond extends the capital we raised. Like the ability to galvanize a community of people who really believed in us. Like nothing bolsters your self-esteem like that.
Amazing. I've also seen that you also bridge purpose and profit. So you donate a portion of your sales to supporting young women's education in India through a partnership. So tell me a bit about how, you're thinking about this business model holistically and from a, purpose and profit driven lens.
Yeah. So very early on, when literally probably week 4 or 5 after Justin and I had that initial conversation and we created the LLC, we agreed upon having a philanthropic component to our company. Both of us feel extremely passionate about giving back, especially to the communities that raised us. So that initial part was a no-brainer, and it was really about finding an organization that is aligned with our values and, as I mentioned, gives back to our community. And so in this case, the Shanti Bhavan School in India is just such a beautiful organization. It takes so many impoverished young children and gives them access to education and resources like mental health, social stability, all these core things that many of us here in the US take for granted. These children don't have. And so being able to support that school and those endeavors with 2% of our annual revenues is really special. It makes us feel like this AAVRANI is so much bigger than beauty. It's all about global confidence and empowering women to really reach their full potential across all dimensions. And that confidence, to me, at least personally, is not just driven by how we look, but our knowledge and how much we know. And so it's really cool to be able to contribute in that way too.
I read that by 2025, the global skincare market is estimated to be nearly $190 billion. So with that in mind, I'm curious, what is your big vision? What does the future look like for AAVRANI?
I see AAVRANI being so much bigger and more global than just eye beauty or Indian-inspired beauty. If we think about even the approach that is taken in India, it's so much deeper than the products or the ingredients themselves. It's the underlying assumption that the mind, body, soul is connected. And so everything really in the pursuit of health is the pursuit of beauty. And so I see AAVRANI as that pioneer in bridging that gap between beauty and wellness globally. And the way to do that is through the holistic beauty approach. So I want to create a whole new category within the global beauty space known as holistic beauty, and hopefully eventually past my lifetime, the only form of beauty, but really changing the way people interact with and interpret beauty, and thinking far beyond the product. If we can encourage and inspire people to do that alone, not even buying the product, I will feel like we have done our job and accomplished a lot.
That's amazing. Anything you'd like to say to the investor community, whether past or current or present, that has helped or supported you along the way?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Anything. I could talk for hours about this. I'm just so overwhelmed with gratitude to all our investors. Truly, as I mentioned before, it's not just about the capital that supports us. It's the community. It's the belief in myself and my co-founder, Justin, that enables us to act and behave in a way with the utmost self-esteem. And you can't buy that. So thank you to the Republic community and our investors for giving that to us.
Amazing. And final question for you. What does it mean to you to bring profit to the people?
I think the term profit is so much more than money. Profit is about living life with abundance and feeling constantly like you are overwhelmed with that. You always have enough and you always, have more to give. So bringing profit to the people is helping people understand that they already are enough and are full of everything that they need, and not just having the physical resources of abundance, but the mindset of that is truly, that's what profit to the people is.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Rooshy, and best of luck on your journey. And we're so excited to have AAVRANI as part of the Republic family.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. It was so nice chatting with you.
This podcast is provided for educational purposes only by Republic and Republic.co. Nothing discussed should be construed as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. The views of the presenters may not be the views of Republic and its affiliates. Always consult with trusted professional advisors before making investments. Private investments are inherently illiquid and may result in a total loss. All rights reserved.